Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest because they take their time to join me on the show. I'm joined by Lizzette. Now, she is a DMV native like myself and has a wonderful story to share. One I think that is extremely important. As you know, I work in higher ed, and now I've been made aware of a large population of students that are going through, I guess I would say, hidden struggles because it's not something that you just you look at someone and you can identify as this is their identity, right? We call them hidden identities in certain spaces, right? And so Lizzette has a wonderful story, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly because she's going to check me. But she has a wonderful story to share about her journey in education and the things she's doing. But I was going to say journey in education. I want to leave it broad like that because I want her to detail that journey, and then we'll go into questions. But Lizzette, thank you so much for joining. Give the listeners a little bit about who you are and your background before we get into this episode.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share more about my story and really raise awareness about the undocumented immigrant story and all the struggles that come along with it, and really share about that there is hope for anyone that's going through a similar struggle. So like you said, I am from the DMV. I grew up in Arlington, Virginia. I went to college in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at Moravian University. Back when I went, it was called Moravian College, but they since changed the name, which is a really exciting thing, but also kind of sad because it's not what I used to know it by. But after college, I got to come back home and started working in nonprofits. So that's my kind of area of expertise, is working in nonprofits. But behind all that story of, trajectory of growth, I've had to deal with the identity and legal limitations of being undocumented. So I found out I was undocumented when I was 15 years old. So I was a freshman in high school. I found out that because my parents overstayed their visa when they came to the US with me along, I couldn't apply to federal aid or any other type of aid. Most of the scholarships available were closed off to me. And I had to figure out another way to go to college. Because that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to improve my education. My mom always said, you have to be a professional, you have to advance and, be better than what I am. So I had to figure it out. I was very lucky that at Wakefield High School, and here's a shout out, Wakefield High School has an amazing team of counselors and teachers. They really helped me figure this huge problem out. So when I realized all the limitations, I did get kind of, upset and sad, and I thought that there was no way forward. But there was a counselor there. I don't think his title was counselor, but Mr. Beitler came over and kind of saved the repurposed that narrative and helped me figure it out. And so through his help and my counselor and other teachers, I was able to learn that I could qualify for merit scholarships. So I went ahead and, got straight A's and got got a merit scholarship to Moravian University. And that was so exciting and so amazing. I loved college. I majored in history and sociology. But, that was only 4 years. And after leaving college and realizing I still didn't have documents, so I couldn't work, and I couldn't use that degree. I had to figure out something else. And so I came back home and I got connected with Dr. Emma Violan Sanchez, who I'm sure a lot of other Latino immigrants know here in the area. And she helped me figure out how to work with nonprofits, as doing internships, contract work, and all that kind of stuff. So I was able to start my career even though I wasn't technically legally able to. And then DACA happened, and I was able to get a work permit and start working. Continue working, I guess.
So that's quite a journey. I mean, you gave us, I was like, wow, like, I think that, I don't want to say mic drop, like that was, there's so many parts where I wanted to ask questions and jump in, but I think the flow of your story was so amazing that I don't want to cut in at all. I think the first question I want to ask is just like, for those like educational pieces, like what does undocumented mean? And like, I might know, but let's educate the people out there in the world. What does that mean per se?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, undocumented for I mean, I think it has different meanings to certain people in the undocumented community. Um, Legally, it means you don't have legal presence in the United States. So, the way I was undocumented, so I'm formally undocumented, to be clear, and I don't want to take that experience away from anyone that continues to be undocumented. But my parents and I came over. We overstayed a visa, and though we came in legally, we lost that, I guess, denomination or whatever you want to call it, once we overstayed. And as the years went on, you just become undocumented. And what that means is you don't have the right to work in the US because you don't have the papers. And also, a lot of the undocumented folks don't have a social security number. So you don't get access to any of those benefits or that that form of identification. In there, so that's the base, right? Undocumented, no papers, no social security, and then there's kind of in between worlds statuses. So, for example, with DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, you get a work permit, but that work permit's valid for 2 years, and it's basically saying the government's saying we aren't going to deport you. Here's a work permit, and there's other similar statuses like that where you're kind of okay, but not really. I would say you're still, in the undocumented space. And then you can switch, I guess going down the spectrum, you can switch your status and become a green card holder eventually. But it's so hard because the avenues to that path are so limited, and kind of very few people can actually get to them. And that's, I guess, the biggest takeaway. I know I rambled on a little bit. Is it's super hard to get documented status once you've been undocumented. And I think if more people realized how difficult it is, they would be more open to the idea of revising our immigration laws and really lending out a hand to the community, because it is tough out there.
Yes, and obviously I don't want to put you on the spotlight as a legal representative and have all the like code 6 and all that, mainly just talking from your experience. So thank you for that overview and the spectrum of it. And I was just thinking like common things that I take for granted. Like, for instance, like you said, no social security number. Like, what was it like growing up and you had to go to the hospital, get sick? Like, how, we always worried, or thinking this is more like now not about legal stuff, but like more in your experience as a high school student. Like, did you ever have this overarching anxiety that you're going to get deported or something? Like, talk about that. The common day-to-day experience in high school and in college with that. Like, what if I get sick, or
Yeah,
X,
yeah, it
Y, and
was.
Z.
Yeah. So to answer what if I get sick, I didn't get sick. Like no one in my family did, which is the worst possible thing you could do, but it is what we did. I remember one time when I was very young, I fell off a monkey bar because I have no upper arm strength. And I kind of twisted my ankle, and I was limping for a bit, and we never like went to a doctor or anything, and it just luckily healed on its own. But that's kind of what happens. You don't get sick, or you just deal with it, and it is because of that fear of deportation and being found out as undocumented. My dad was very scared of taking any type of handout from the government and the state, and that just like limited us to what type of resources we can access. I know in high school, my mom finally got us to apply for the free and reduced lunch option, but throughout that whole time we had been paying full price meals, even though we technically didn't have enough money for it, and could qualify for free and reduced lunch. So it's because of that fear of what if who knows about my status turns me over to the police and the immigration customs, DHS, sorry, Department of Homeland Security. So it's always something to be scared of, and how much information you're sharing with people. I know we were very reserved as a family. We kind of kept to ourselves, just because of that. And like my parents always saying, "Oh, don't share too much because you don't know what people are gonna do. You don't know who's good and who's bad." So that's kind of, and that has larger implications. As I'm now fully grown and looking back and seeing how I've been shaped by that experience, I know that I am still very reserved. I don't like to share that much. So this is kind of, out of the ordinary, but it's necessary because other people are, wondering about it and also going through it. And I really think hearing from someone that's been there can help.
Well, one, I was about to say, sheesh, like I want to just already set the tone and give flowers right now. This is you sharing your story is immensely powerful, and I just want to say it right now that thank you so much. And then the other part is like, I don't know, you glanced over it, but you're like, um, the amount of resilience where you're like, all right, so I had to get a merit-based scholarship. So I just got straight A's. I'm like, what? Like, you're just going to stun on me like that? So, like, talk about that drive. Like, okay, so you realize, like, how did you navigate that? Like, trying to be successful and also, like, having all these layers of things to think about, like getting good grades and stuff. Like, talk about that experience, really trying to pursue going to college and having that dual identity, during high school. And then we'll get to college. We'll talk a little bit about college later.
Yeah. So I guess I was kind of, when I found out I was undocumented for a year or so, I realized it was going to be like high school. The end of high school was going to be the end of anything in that professional dream my mom had set out for me, and my dad had, all that. It was just like it ends when you're 18 and you get to go work, manual labor somewhere because that's all you can do. So I said to myself, oh, so maybe I'll just end on a high note. And I did that. I know one of the big motivations, this is funny, was when I was in high school, I was in the orchestra, and the orchestra got to play the graduation ceremony. And so I got to go when I was a freshman, and I saw that the valedictorian got to speak. at the graduation ceremony. So I was like, oh, I want to do that. And that's kind of also a big motivator for me throughout high school. Like, oh, I gotta, keep studying, keep getting great grades because I want to speak at the end. And so that was one part of it. The other part I think is my mom just kept saying, like, oh, something will happen, you'll figure it out. Don't worry, just keep doing what you do. And I think that helped a lot because having someone that really believed in me and really believed in life and like that something good will happen for you if you put good things forward, um, helped me continue on even though like everything was saying no.
I mean, I know you're smiling and laughing, but like I was like, man, I'm like all like, cause like it's like, man, the power of visualization is real, man.
Yeah.
And you visualize it. It's like I just want to speak on that stage. So whatever it takes me to get in the stage. And the funny part is, uh, you're sharing one of the dreams I have for myself. One of my stuff. Well, I went to when I graduated from Mason. I said one day I'm going to speak at the Convocation Center. I'm gonna
Yeah.
do graduation, not because I'm a valedictorian. Like maybe I'll be someone of somewhat importance that when they come back and say, class of 22, here's a random alum to talk back to you. And I was like, all right, so maybe one day I'll be that random guy. But the power of the mind is no joke.
It is.
And I love that. So like, let's say you got to college, right? And one of the things I saw it came out was like, okay, you got there. Like that was almost like, I think maybe your visualization was like, okay, I just want to get to college. And you got there. Now you might have to create a new vision. So let's talk about that freshman year. Like you made it. You got the straight A's, you got to college, navigating that space. And then you talking about, and another thing I want to ask about navigating new spaces, maybe at college, were you able to be a little bit more, not vulnerable, but more less reserved about like not fearful of deportation in college? Is it a different vibe, a different feeling once you're away from home?
Yeah, yeah. So it was very different. I was free for the first time. Like for most students, freedom means you get to be yourself a little more and explore new ways of being, which was really exciting for me. I definitely broke out of my shell a lot in college. I did not share with people that I was undocumented, and I think I did that on purpose because I didn't want, like, I was still scared of what could happen. Also, I went to a very white school, so I don't know who's like really against immigrants and like how people might react. And I really just wanted to blend in. So that's kind of the approach I took. I had to maintain great grades because of the scholarship. So I knew that was, like the the big driver was you have to get great grades so you can continue. Um, and then like I made a really great group of friends right from freshman year, and they were all very studious and really trying to keep up with them helped me uh, be a great student and continue forward even though I knew that I was working toward a degree that I probably couldn't use immediately after graduating. Um, so that's the college experience. I think. Trying to remember if I do recall. I used to have a poster of um, I think it was like an ocean and some mountains, and the words said "One day you will," and I just kept that in mind because as my friends were, talking about taking internships and applying to jobs, um, I knew I couldn't, but that one day I would, and kind of just putting it on hold, putting all those dreams, to a side, just focusing on what was up next the day ahead.
Now, one other thing I did, like I said, I'm stalking.
Yeah.
I see that you joined. You said mostly white school, and I see that you joined a sorority, right?
Yes.
I got to throw it out there. Member of Alpha Phi Alpha, so that. Shout out to Greek life. But let's talk about maybe in these mostly white spaces. Did you ever because you had to hide your identity, did you ever hear things that like, man, I want to speak up, but I can't because I'm worried? So like, for instance, like microaggressions, but if I speak up, they're going to find me out. Did that ever happen? You know, like people being toxic about immigration and saying all this toxic stuff, but you can't speak out because then, you know, that kind of gives yourself up. So did that ever come up? That's just a question that came in my head.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it did. Maybe not so blatant. Maybe just like a joke. I don't recall a specific one, but like I think that probably happened. I did not, step up to the occasion because I was still scared,
Mhm.
and it's taking a long time to accept that as part of like something that I failed to do. But it's okay because you were, I tell myself, you were so young, you still had so much at stake. Like you're fine. Like now you're speaking out, it's fine. And yeah, it's because you're scared not only of the what will happen legally, who will find out, what will happen with my scholarship, all that, but like being even just outcasted from the social groups. Like I think I I couldn't handle that back then.
Well, I was about to say, like, one, I'm shaking my head, like, give yourself grace. Like, I didn't, that question was more so like, I'll be honest and being, fully transparent and vulnerable with you. I just came out. I just been made public that I identify as neurodiverse, right? Like I have ADHD. No one will ever know that. I used to keep it to myself until I realized that it's impacting. So, yeah, there's probably many times in my past where I'm like, I wish I could have been vocal about it or got some services or got some help, but I was also, embarrassed by the stigma and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to guilt myself for that, right? Like, it's not a thing that, when I asked that question, I didn't mean that in the sense of guilty. I was more so like, man, that's crazy. Like, more so we're always in these spaces where our identities are hidden. And, I think about that with empathy, like how many people are going through spaces like that and they want to speak up, but, they have those same things. So
Yeah.
giving ourselves grace just as much as we would give someone else grace.
Yeah, it's so important to do that, especially to grow from it. Like you have to give yourself grace for younger you. It's fine. Like still learning. Like, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard on yourself. No one.
No,
Like,
not at
yes.
all. And like, so I'm thinking about this right now. You had the light at the end of the tunnel with I'm going to get on the stage and graduate. And knowing that your situations may be a little different, did you still have a light at the end of the tunnel? Like, even if I'm undocumented, by me graduating college, I have some success, or was that just another, not, something that you look forward to? Talk about that experience. And in between, were you still like doing internships and stuff as a student, or was that a barrier because you didn't have documentation? You couldn't do internships while in school?
Yeah. So it was a bigger barrier in my head, I think, than actually. I did do an internship. I think it was my junior year, my summer of my junior year, which was great, and I I got to work in an office, experience how that is, and really feel productive, and that the degree I was working toward could lead to actual skills that were, worthy of um, employment and feeling, useful to society. So I interned at Edu Futuro, which is also in the DMV, a great organization. And I got to work with a lot of immigrant students. So I got to see where they're at, help them also think about college and visualize how they're going to get there. So I think it was a great fit. Um, then I once I graduated, I interned for Dream Project, which is a scholarship organization that gives financial aid to students going to college for 4 years. Um, I also interned at the Family Online Safety Institute, which, again, with technology, it tried to help move policy that made the internet safe for kids. So I got those experiences. They were awesome. But I had to really research and push myself to be vulnerable and apply. And like when you apply, you also have to ask, is it okay? Like this is be transparent about what your situation is, which is really hard. And I'm really glad I don't have to do that anymore. And I wish no one would, because it's just an added layer to what it's not the normal experience, and it's very a grueling process.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we have an undocu ally training here at Mason, and hearing most of the facilitators are actual students that are sharing their experiences, and it just brings it home, and the resiliency, and then the extra layer. Like I really try to put myself in other people's shoes about empathy, like like wow, like these extra layers that you don't think of. Like you just said it, why, like wow, like the job experience is hard enough. Like
Yes.
we're making it even harder. It's like let's just ramp up the dial a little bit. Like difficulty, you're gonna put it on all pro instead of Madden, right? We adding a layer of difficulty to a very difficult situation.
Exactly.
Um, were you able, like in any of these times and spaces, because were you able to ever connect peer to peer with other undocumented students or undocumented people? When I say peer to peer, because eventually I think what you're sharing is over time you've been able to give back as a adult and help the next generation coming up. But did you ever have that peer to peer support?
Yeah. So I didn't find that peer to peer support until I was out of college. It was I think the second week out of college, I was back home. I got connected with some um, undocumented professionals, which was, like that was really motivating and another light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be honest, when I graduated college, I was very upset. I didn't know what I was going to do, I had no plan. Um, so meeting these undocumented professionals who were just, a few years older than me back then, I was like, oh my God, they're so old. But right now, I realized that we were pretty close in age, and they looked very established in their jobs, but they were early career, very young people, very motivated to make changes, to the law so that more of our community could work and live here without fear. um, they This group was very like meeting this group was super eye-opening to me because I never met other undocumented people. We shared experiences, we were able to talk about our experiences, and everyone had gone through college, so we had very similar ways we approached it, how we got to college. Everything was very, it was very like a very bonding moment, and inspiring because they were making it work without papers. They were working, they were contributing to society, and I thought that was amazing, and it really helped me, uh, you know, get out of, I would say, a little bit of a depression mode after college, and figure it out once again, like I had done before.
How'd you find this group?
Um, they were organizing, so they were looking to meet other undocumented people because they wanted to do a advocacy group that would push DC, Virginia, and Maryland to implement. I think we were fighting for the the DC Dream Act, the Virginia Dream Act, and the Maryland Dream Act, which were legislations that would open up in-state tuition rates for undocumented
Yeah,
students.
I remember that shit. But what was it on Facebook? Or how do you like? Was it like
Yes.
LinkedIn? I was about to say like
Yes.
like how you find, like you was like, and then okay, let's be real. Like how did you find it? Did you say undocumented people and then a Facebook group came up, or like someone
No, I
invited
think
you? How did
so.
it happen?
I had asked someone about an internship somewhere, and they were like, and since when I'm asking, I'm like, hey, can I work for you? I know, I'm so sorry, I don't have documents, and like, oh my God, please let me work. So I said that to this person. They were like, oh, you should check out this person. Same story. And I was like, okay. So I went on Facebook,
Yeah,
looked
yeah,
them up.
yeah, yeah. And when you went on Facebook, did you DM them and say, let's, like, I mean, this is like you are networking. So, I mean, what would you like use? Introduce yourself in the DMs? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So I was like, hey, I'm undocumented. Two, I just got back to the area, looking to connect. They said you have a similar experience, something like that. And they're like, oh great, we're doing a meetup like this Friday. Come on over. And I was like, okay. You're on mute.
Sorry.
You're still mute.
Sorry. That's me. And I'm not going to cut that out because I'm leaving that in the podcast because I make mistakes too, but whatever. But this is like networking one-on-one, like putting yourself out there, building connections, building your network, and being strategic. And that takes a lot of courage, right? Like you talked about, you had a whole, I think for what I'm hearing is you had to do a whole unlearning about outreaching, right? Because you grew up saying, we don't talk about it. We don't talk to new people about this. And now you're doing a complete opposite. You're on virtual. You're talking to people about it, So like, how was that? Like, was the first couple of messages like, oh no, like they might be the feds, they might be the ops, like, I don't know. Or like you had the courage. I don't know. Talk about that message. I feel like that was a lot of courage to send people messages, and meet new people.
Yeah. It's very different because I know, like when we were growing up, sometimes my dad would use different names when he was talking to people because he was so scared. And from going from that to like, hey, this is my life story. How can you help me? It's like day and night. I think necessity drove that. There was no other way. Like continuing to be quiet and secretive about my situation was not going to help anyone. And then once you start sharing a little bit and you see like, oh, this led to this and this led to this, you get more encouraged by it and keep doing it. And I think that's what really drove that, the success of it, because it is really helpful to reach out to people when you need them and really be direct about what you want them to help you with.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I always teach about. And when I talk about students doing informational interviews or networking, is that you put yourself out there, but you're very transparent about what you want. And not like I want a job, but more so like knowledge and information. Because the people that you reached out to, I'm pretty sure you're saying, I'm undocumented. I'd love to learn. They couldn't just give you a job, but they gave you some resources and connections, right? So you're very transparent about it. One thing I thought about too is like, what about that experience of in real life, right? Taking it from the virtual meeting to the real life meeting. How was that? Like I always love that experience when you connect with someone digitally and then you meet them online or in real life, what I'm saying? And they're just as, they give you a hug the first time. You're like, wow, this person's my people. We never met and I'm hugging this person because we had such a good relationship. So can you talk about like all these connections you made, building a community and meeting some of these people in real life for the first time?
Yeah, it's exciting, right? So I think I'm reminded about that coming out of the pandemic and meeting people in real life for the first time as well. So the transition from the virtual networking and virtual meetups to the in-person is huge. So the person behind the monitor is real and you get to touch, and it's amazing because it just adds another layer of connection between you two. And realness to it. I think the people that I talked to were so genuine online that they were also like right away when we met in person, it was very, very fluid, very real. Like the relationship, the friendship we had, it just transferred to 3D. So it was really fun to get from that stage to this stage, in person. So yeah, it was nice.
I love it. One question: when did it tip over, and you're like, okay, now, and you talked a little about your career, but when did it tip over to you, being on the other end and advocating, and I see you doing things in the community. Where did it tip over from you getting help to you now helping others? When did that happen?
Yeah, I think once I started working with Dream Project as an intern, it never stopped from there. That was soon after college, because Dream Project helped get high school students and college students in money and mentoring so that they could succeed in college. I as like the intern or whatever title I was holding, I was always in direct contact with the students. And then when I wasn't working at Dream Project, I was also organizing in Virginia to help immigrants fight for their rights. So I think meeting the people and really working with them to find power in our collective drove that work forward. And it's been a huge part of my life, just being an organizer or activist, whatever you want to call it, with these communities. And I continue to do it, but just in different ways now, maybe less time intensive ways, but it's always going to be a part of who I am.
So, I mean, I think we can do a part two, but I think, I want to respect your time. And then also, I like to get to my segment, but this has been great. I actually learned so much. I was so enthralled in the conversation. Normally I take notes, but I couldn't this time. I'll just be honest. I was just really listening to your story. And I think just hearing your resiliency and the power of visual, I'm seeing so many themes of like well-being, like resiliency or visualization, all these things. And just hearing your story is really greatly appreciated. So we're at a part of the show called Shot for Shot. You get to share, shot for shot. You get to ask me a random question. I ask you a random question. You want to go first? I'll go first.
You go first.
All right. So you're an athlete too, right? So tell us about, stunt, like Uncle Rico, like, he was all state. Tell us a little bit about your athletic accolades. Not really a question. It's more like a statement, but still, yeah. Because I see you played in college too. So
I did. I'm a field hockey player, defense. Although I mostly did not play in the games, I practiced with the team. And in the end, I did get a dedication award because my senior year I got injured, and I still went to every practice, and also I just stuck with it, and it was great being with this team. Even though I wasn't the best player by far, I'm sure my field hockey teammates are laughing when they hear this, but I love field hockey, and it's a great sport, and I love being out on the field with them.
Hold up, didn't you do it in college too, though?
Yeah, but we're D3.
No, see, what is this minimization though? Like, don't see. Look, I would have just ate that. Said I was a D3 athlete. I mean, collegiate athlete. Like, you're so funny. Like, I don't think you realize the art of like stunning, and like people have to do their research. Like, I was a college athlete. They're like, oh, for real? And that's it. They don't need to know that's D3.
I like to be very honest.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, dang, she's stunned.
I don't need
I was like, I looked on there and said, Phil, you was doing it. You did varsity at a college. I was just gonna eat that. So that's great. But that's a great experience. All right, what's your random question for me?
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Actually, that's a good one. It's very surprising. What are normally people you hear the generic flavors? What do you think I would say? Like, what do you hear mostly for ice cream flavors?
Butter pecan.
Oh, snap. Okay, that is my favorite. She got a okay. Yeah, that's my favorite. Honestly, it is. And I don't know. I don't think a lot of people, they usually say chocolate vanilla, or strawberry, or rocky road. I think butter pecan is the unrated ice cream flavor. Like, I don't think that comes first to mind. So I'm very surprised. Did you do that on opposite? Like, think of a one that's not top of mind and said that one because that is my favorite, is butter pecan.
Yeah, I figured it'd be something more specific.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, well, that is my favorite. And I was talking to my wife the other day, and I like to actually get it in milkshakes, and she hates it because like because the nuts get stuck in the straw.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It
I
doesn't.
didn't even know they put it in milkshakes.
It doesn't. Well, you can make anything a milkshake. Say I want a milkshake. Like what you want? I was like butter pecan. Like I go to this. We used to go to this lake, and it's called the Lakeside Creamery, and it make any of the flavors of milkshake, and I would always get butter pecan. The problem is the nuts don't go up the straw; they get stuck. So it's not a very functional milkshake flavor, but it's delicious to me. So this is great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we learned a lot. So now this is the part of the show called Shout Outs and Plugs. So you get to show love to anyone you want to show love to, shout out anyone, family, friends, anyone, and then plugs. These are things that you want the listeners to know about you or follow up with you or, things you're working on, LinkedIn, all that stuff. So I'll be quiet. Shout outs and plugs.
I'll give a shout out to my mom, who has been very supportive of everything I've done, and really she paid for a lot of things while I was in college, whatever the scholarships didn't cover, and I really appreciate her. Also, shout out to my husband, Scott, who's been a really supportive friend and just a rock throughout this, the tumultuous past few years with like whoever was in the White House and the pandemic. So, and last shout out to, everyone at Wakefield High School. I love them and I miss them. I know they're fundraising right now. Their senior class wants to go on the traditional, they do a cruise of the Potomac right after graduation. I remember when I went to, after my graduation, I went on the cruise and it was the most amazing time. People thought I had been drinking because I was so happy. So if you have extra dollars to give to the Wakefield High School class, please go check it out. Go to their website. I'll also post a link about it on my LinkedIn. I'd love to have you follow me on LinkedIn or connect. Happy to connect with anyone that is interested in the immigrant experience or communications. And yeah, I'm just very interested in growing my network and continue learning from everyone. I think everyone has something to offer. And I'm also on Twitter, so look for me, Lizzie A116. So yeah.
Well, thank you. All the contact information will be in the show notes. Please follow up. Lizzette, this has been a great episode. I'm laughing now because I think I see your smiling and your personality that it is infectious. It might. I want to be that level. I want to be so happy that it looks like I'm drunk. I think that's going to be goals right there. Like you exude so much joy that people's like, man, this person is drunk, and you just happy, naturally drunk. You know what I'm saying? I love that. I love that mindset. So, Positive Philter listeners, please support Lizzette and everything that she's working on. Thank you. And thank her for sharing her story. Please share this episode with your family members or friends. Elevate the podcast. Leave a like and subscribe. All that on Apple Podcasts. All the reviews and subscriptions help elevate the podcast. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. And please consider contributing to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund. I put that in the show notes of every episode to honor him and his memory. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund. Thank you so much for listening, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.